It is that time of the week again. We look at good and bad matchups that you should be targeting and avoiding for fantasy football. We put these out each and every week, and we are hitting at over a 60% rate. So good matchups have good games, bad matchups have bad games 60% of the time. The players that we are talking about, which is really, really good because a lot of the players we talk about are kind of those fringe starters. It's not the obvious guys. I'm not telling you to start Jaden Daniels and Alvin Kamara because you're going to start those guys no matter what, right? It's more of the fringe guys that maybe you're kind of back and forth on. Should I start them? Should I sit them? So hitting it over a 60% rate is really good, and we're going to be winning a lot of matchups because of it. First up here is the quarterbacks, the good matchups for quarterbacks. I have, of course, the Detroit Lions against the Dallas Cowboys. And for quarterbacks in general, it's mostly about the offensive line. I love the offensive line matchup for the Lions against the defensive line of the Cowboys, especially Cowboys being a little bit beat up as they are. I think this bodes well for Goff. Now, Goff's tough because when they get down to the red zone, when they get down to the 5-yard line, they run the ball, right? And they're not going to stop doing that. So you could have a game of Goff where the Lions put up 30 points and Goff has no passing touchdowns. It's just the reality for him. But he's been playing a lot better the last 2 weeks. I think that's going to continue with this matchup. Lions offensive line always gives you a plus matchup against the defensive line of whatever team they're going up against. Jordan Love is another one here. Now, Jordan Love, had a little bit of a down week, I guess. He was QB 14 last week. That's not terrible if your quarterback's going to be QB 14 every now and then, knowing that they could possibly be QB 2 overall like he was in week 4. Like the matchup for Green Bay against Arizona. Arizona's pass rush is not that great. They do have a decent pressure rate, but their sack conversion rate is kind of low at only 14%. And the Packers are only giving up a pressure on 24% of Love's dropbacks, which is pretty good. So like this matchup for Love, I think it could be a high-scoring game as well. So I expect Jordan Love to have a pretty good matchup here. And then my last good matchup is Bo Nix. Again, I try to give you a little bit deeper of players. I'm not telling you to start the obvious guys here. Bo Nix, to me, I like this matchup. The offensive line for the Broncos are only giving up a pressure on 23% of the dropbacks, and 11% of those are turning into sacks. Bo Nix has been pretty good on the ground and escaping and giving you a solid rushing floor in some games. Also, the Chargers, I believe, are going to be without Joey Bosa. I know he wasn't practicing again coming off the bye, which is never a good sign. So that only helps Bo Nix more. Wouldn't be surprised. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game, but I wouldn't be surprised if Bo Nix gives you like 200, a touchdown, and 30 yards on the ground, right? Which, isn't amazing, but it's not terrible, right? If you need a quarterback to start, I think Bo Nix is going to be in that kind of streaming quarterback category in one quarterback league. So on to some bad matchups here. I have some big names here. Joe Burrow, who's the QB4 consensus rating this week. He's been really good the last 3 weeks. QB 10 in week 4, QB 2 in week 5. I think he was a top 5 quarterback in week 3. So I'm not saying you should be sitting Joe Burrow. All I'm saying is the Giants are showing that they're kind of a tough matchup for their pass rush is pretty good. They're getting pressure on 32% of their opposing team's dropbacks, and they're turning 23% of those into sacks. That's a really good number. It's actually tied for the best in the entire NFL, that sack conversion rating. So, they're getting after the quarterbacks. There's proving to be a tough matchup now. They gave Dak some problems. What was it, a couple weeks ago? They obviously gave who was it last week that they played? I'm trying to remember now. They gave Geno some problems. I think Geno was actually all right, but a lot of it was garbage time. Deshaun Watson, even Jaden Daniels was he looked mortal. Considering what Jaden Daniels has looked like the entire season, I think his worst game came against the Giants. So I think the Giants have a better defense than we think. So it could spell some trouble for Burrow, but I'm still starting him with relative confidence. Dak Prescott, once again, on the opposite side, the Lions have a pretty nasty pass rush here. So I don't love that for the Cowboys. The Lions are getting a pressure on 36% of their opposing dropbacks. That is like tied for second best in the entire NFL. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Lions, again, I'm probably going to be starting Dak. I think it could be a shootout, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Lions kind of wreck the day for Dak and get after him and just make his day a living hell. But I do think he can beat him. If he gets protection, I think he can beat those cornerbacks of the Lions. So it's kind of a give and take. Do you think the Cowboys are going to be able to protect Dak? If they do, I'm fine starting him. If you think they're going to have problems with it, though, it could be a tough day for the Cowboys and Dak Prescott. And then Jalen Hurts, the consensus QB3 here. Again, am I starting Jalen Hurts? Yes. Do I not like this matchup against the Cleveland Browns? Yeah, I don't, honestly. I don't like the matchup. If the Cleveland Browns can do anything good, it's still get after the quarterback. They're allowing only 14 points per game to quarterbacks, which is in the top 7, it looks like, top 7 or 8, the Browns are. I'd be interested to see how many of those are through running the ball, which Jalen Hurts can do. But the Browns in general, they have a good defense. They have a good defensive line. They have good cornerbacks if they're healthy. So am I starting Jalen Hurts? Yes. Would I be surprised if he kind of has like a ho-hum game? I wouldn't be. On to the running backs here. Again, running backs, we're looking at the offensive and defensive line matchups for run blocking. I love Tony Pollard this week. Obviously, he's going up against the Indianapolis Colts. I love that for Tony Pollard and the Titans. They're going to be a run-first team. Look what they just did against Miami. They ran, what was it? Pollard had 22 carries. Tajay Spears had 15 carries. This is what they're going to do, I think, to avoid and limit mistakes from either Rudolph or Levis. So I think that, we can fire Tony Pollard up as like a top 15 guy this week. Plus, I just really like that matchup here. DeAndre Swift, man, he's going to be on this list for the next couple of weeks. He was on the list the last 2 weeks, and he's had really good games the last 2 weeks. Hopefully you trusted him. I know it's hard to. I think you can start trusting him, though, because he has another really good matchup this week going up against the Jacksonville Jaguars. And the Jacksonville Jaguars are just kind of a shit show a little bit on defense, to be honest. They give up 24 points to running backs, which is, I think, top 7 worst or top 7 best to target for your fantasy running backs. Really like Swift this week. Think he can kind of continue. Why go away from what's working? The offense seems to be a lot better when Swift's running the ball. Take some pressure off of Caleb. So I like this matchup for Swift. I think he's, again, a top 20 guy. I believe that's it for my good running backs. A lot of the other ones are obvious starts. The Detroit guys, I like their matchup, but you're starting Gibbs and Montgomery. How do I help you telling you start Gibbs and Montgomery? That's just stupid. Derrick Henry has a good matchup. I like that with Washington. Derrick Henry, isn't he the RB1 this week, or this year to start? Like, I'm not helping you by saying start Derrick Henry. Ramondre Stevenson. Now, this is I found out before going live or recording this video is I think Stevenson might not play, and I'm just double checking that. Yeah, he did not practice the last 2 weeks. So this kind of translates over to Antonio Gibson if you were going to plan on starting Antonio Gibson as a bad matchup. It's actually my number 1 most hated matchup. I think Houston's defense is better than what it's shown this year. I think the Patriots are going to have a hard time protecting Drake May, and they're going to have a hard time running the ball against Houston. Houston's allowing only 1.27 yards before contact, which isn't great. And New England is kind of shutting that down a little bit as well. So yeah, I don't love this for the Patriots. So whether it's Stevenson or Gibson, I would try to avoid it if I can. I know it's kind of hard this week with buys, but if I can, I'm going to try to avoid that matchup. Chase Brown is another one. I don't love the matchup. Cincinnati going up against the Giants. Again, I keep referencing the Giants. They have a better defense than we're giving credit for. just to double check here. Giants are giving up. They're about middle of the road, 18.2, closer to the top half, 18.2 points against to given up to running back. So, I did see a report that I think they're both healthy, Zach Moss and Chase Brown, but I did see a report that maybe Chase Brown might be switching to questionable. So keep an eye on that. Either way, don't love the matchup for the Bengals guys. Hard to get away from one of them though, because you're going to get some work here. On to the wide receivers. I have some wide receiver matchups that I think are good this week. Josh Downs going up against Roger McCreary. I think especially with Pittman being out for Josh Downs and the Colts. I really like this matchup. Roger McCreary, the Tennessee slot cornerback, that's who Josh Downs is going to see the most of. And I think Josh Downs plays in the slot. I think they use Adonai Mitchell and Alec Pierce out wide and Josh Downs in the slot. Love this for Downs. Think he's going to have a good week. He's had 2 good weeks back-to-back, top 8 and top 25. I think that's going to continue even with Anthony Richardson. I'd be looking to start Josh Downs. George Pickens against Jack Jones and Jacorian Bennett of the Raiders. I love this matchup for Pickens, man. He's been such a disappointment this year. I don't think a lot of it's his fault, and he could kind of have a squeaky wheel game this week, which, squeaky wheel gets the oil type of thing. Like, there were some issues with, they didn't like his attitude or whatever, and that's why he didn't play that much last week. And it's kind of like, man, you need this guy on the field. Outside of Justin Fields, like, who do you have to make plays on offense, right? Justin Fields can do it with his legs. That's it. Besides, you have Pickens, and that's it. Like, put this guy on the field. He's wide receiver 42 to start the year. I'm hoping this is the week we see a boom game from Pickens. I'd like the matchup, and I think it could be a squeaky wheel game for him. Wan'Dale Robinson, he was on this list for a couple of weeks now, even before kind of his breakout. I was telling you, I like this matchup for Wan'Dale. Slot cornerbacks. There's not a lot of good slot cornerbacks in the NFL is what I'm learning. Mike Hilton of the Bengals, I think Wan'Dale could win that matchup. Malik Neighbors is out again. So for PPR, I'm firing up Wan'Dale, and I'm happy to get 6-7 catches. Hopefully I get 70 yards and maybe a touchdown. And who knows, maybe I can get more than that. So Wan'Dale going up against Mike Hilton. You see him ranked there as the consensus wide receiver 29 in half PPR. I think he kind of smashes that. I think he finishes as a top 24 guy at worst. And then Zay Flowers is another one here. I like the matchup for Zay Flowers. I'm not even going to try and pronounce the names of the Washington Commanders cornerbacks. It's Sainristril. I said I'm not going to try, and then I try. And then the other one I'm definitely not going to try. It's Noah I is what I'm calling him. Noah IG, if you want to call him IG. Obviously, the Commanders are a team to target for wide receivers. They don't have a very good defense. And it could potentially be a shootout if Jaden Daniels is the real deal. This is a good test for him. So if it's a shootout, I like Zay Flowers even more. If it's a positive game script for Flowers, he's been good. If it's a negative game script and they don't throw a lot, he's not good. I don't even mind taking shots on guys like Rashad Bateman in like DFS or like deep dynasty leagues or whatever, or deep leagues in general, just because, I think he could catch a long touchdown. I wouldn't be surprised. Into some bad matchups. Tank Dell, he's been so disappointing. I don't think we put enough consideration into Tank Dell breaking his ankle or fibula last year. And it was the same injury, I believe, as Tony Pollard, who said it took him 10, 11 weeks to feel normal last year. It took him until about week 10 or 11 until he felt normal. Mark Andrews had that injury, and we look at what Mark Andrews is doing. And then Tank Dell, not only did he have that injury last year, he also got shot. And I almost forgot about this. He got shot this year in the offseason. I think it was back in like May or something, but he got shot, man. Like, that has to mess with your conditioning and your just your training in general and staying in shape. So, man, I want to trust Tank Dell with Nico Collins out. I don't mind taking a chance on him because he could have a big game, but those Patriots cornerbacks are legit. They are legit. Marcus Jones and Marcus Jones is going to play. Christian Gonzalez is really good. Jonathan Jones is good too. Like, they're all really good. And I think it could give Tank Dell some issues. I think it's more honestly of like a Diggs run game type of game, but I don't mind taking a shot on Dell. I think he could have a good game, but I'm worried about this matchup for sure. Christian Kirk is another one that I'm worried about. Kyler Gordon, who is going to play for the Bears, I believe, should be covering Christian Kirk the most. Now, the Bears have some injuries. I think Tyreek Stevenson's out and maybe another cornerback, so that could change their game plan and how they deploy Kyler Gordon. Do they keep him in the slot? Do they move him outside? If they keep him in the slot, I don't love that for Christian Kirk. And because those other guys are hurt, maybe you can take advantage of that and use more of like a Brian Thomas or Gabe Davis. So it'll be interesting to see. Kirk's been good since they finally went back to him. Wide receiver 16, wide receiver 31. So he's been, a top 24 guy each of the last 2 weeks or, 2 weeks combined. I just don't love this matchup. Bears pass defense is legit. Now they are beat up, so we'll see how that plays out. And then Amon-Ra St. Brown going up against Jordan Lewis at the Cowboys. I think the Lions are really going to dominate and run the ball this game. I think it's a Jameson Williams game. I think it's a Sam Laporta game. Now, am I sitting Amon-Ra St. Brown? Hell no, I'm not stupid, right? Amon-Ra St. Brown is different, and he could probably be any good slot quarterback. But there's going to be times when he loses matchups, right? And if it's going to happen, Jordan Lewis has played very well for the Cowboys in the slot this year. So, I mentioned it with Wandale when they played, 2 weeks ago? So 3 weeks ago, I said, Wandale, start him. He's going to have a good matchup, right? And that's when he had his, what did he have? I'm trying to remember. I can't remember what it was, but I think Jordan Lewis is a pretty good slot quarterback. Am I sitting Amon-Ra? No. Would I be surprised if he has a big game? Of course not. But just throwing it out there. Don't love the matchup for him. And then finally, some tight ends here. I love the Cole Kmet matchup going up against Antonio Johnson. Again, it's just Jacksonville in general. I don't love their defense. I think they have a bad defense. And I think this could be a Cole Kmet game who has had a pretty good the last 3 weeks. He had a big game, and then he had a little bit of a down game, 4.9 points. But then 7.2, like, honestly, you'll take that from your tight end, especially if they can give you a big game. But I really like this matchup for Cole Kmet, and I think we should be taking advantage of that one for sure. Juwan Johnson, kind of a deeper one here if you need a streaming tight end. I don't mind this matchup. Now, you have Spencer Rattler, right? You have Spencer Rattler. That's a little bit tough, but I do think the Buccaneers have some pretty good cornerbacks, which could give problems to guys like Olave and Shaheed. And maybe the rookie relies a little bit on his short area targets, his Alvin Kamara's and Juwan Johnson's of the world. I think Juwan Johnson's trending up in terms of his usage and things like that. So I like to see that. I think he's a pretty good player. I'm not saying he's amazing. I do think he's their best tight end, pure pass catching tight end on the team. Obviously, Taysom Hill is a different animal, but here's Juwan Johnson's snap percentage: 35, 41, 50, 68, 79. So it's trending up. He's getting above that 80% threshold, which is what we need to see, especially for these kind of streaming tight ends. If you're out on the field, you're going to catch some passes. We know he's a touchdown threat. Just had 5 catches, 5 targets, and 31 yards last week. I think he could have a pretty good week here. Also, Tucker Kraft, but I think most people are starting him. Love the matchup for Tucker Kraft against Kaiser White of Arizona. Arizona just leaves the middle of the field wide open. And then Zach Ertz. Zach Ertz is a bad matchup here, going up against Trenton Simpson. Don't love that matchup for Baltimore and Zach Ertz. I think Simpson's a pretty good coverage player here. Linebacker that can kind of shut down Zach Ertz. So if you were kind of chasing a little bit where Zach Ertz has, had some decent games this year, he had like 8 targets last week. So if you're chasing the targets, which he's had decent target percentage, I think I would avoid it this week. I think I would try and avoid it. So there you have it, guys. A little bit late on this, but good and bad matchups for Week 6. Good luck in your matchups. I hope you all win. Hopefully this video helps you. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Help us get to 700 subscribers before the end of October. Hopefully we can get there. We'll see. Catch you guys all in the next video.